Hello everyone. Here is the second scooter test of the year, which will be about a relatively small, yet high-quality manufactured scooter. Join me. Okay, well, there are many types of scooters in the world. There are smaller ones and bigger ones. The Kukirin S1 Max is the subject of today's test, a relatively small scooter, an urban commuting scooter, a true last-mile device. But what does last mile mean? Well, manufacturers came up with this device, which means relatively small power, relatively small weight, relatively small battery, and thus relatively small range. The essence of these scooters is really to be as light as possible, to be as easy to carry around as possible, since they were designed for us to cover the last mile, or in Hungary, the last kilometer, meaning to use public transport in the city, but to cover that 1, 2, or 3 kilometers between public transport and our final destination as comfortably and quickly as possible. These scooters will be good for that. There are plenty of these types of scooters, including various Xiaomi clones, which are not of very high quality, but they are very cheap. The goal of Kukirin with this scooter was to offer a well-assembled, high-quality and visually appealing scooter made from good materials at the lowest possible price. The S1 Max completely meets this goal, as considering how small and slender it is, it has received quite a good appearance. And what is very important is that despite its small size, the footboard is relatively large, so it can be used quite comfortably even with larger shoe sizes. Now we could go over the specifications, but first let's unpack and assemble it. It won't take long, I promise. The box is relatively small, now as it only contains this tiny little scooter. Essentially, you can take it out of the box in one piece. You won't find much to assemble on it. All you need to do is connect one single cable that comes out of the handlebar. Then attach the handlebar itself to the rod, and you're basically done. You won't have much else to do, as you don't need to adjust the brakes here, since there are no brakes that require adjustment. Of course, it's still worth performing a brake test to ensure that nothing goes wrong while on the road, but really, that's all there is to the assembly. Just connecting one cable and screwing in 6 screws, and you're done. Let's see what the structure looks like from the outside. We're not talking about something overly complicated. As I mentioned, this is a stick scooter, and as I said, it has a relatively large deck where we can stand. I have a shoe size of 43T44 and a half, but even I can stand relatively comfortably on this deck. The braking system, is completely simple. We don't find any brake on the front wheel. There will be a brake on the rear wheel. Right? Here we have a motor brake, which means that the motor is at the back here, and we can step on the rear fender, stepping on it onto the wheel, and this will be the second brake. Every electric scooter that is put into circulation requires 2 separate braking systems. Otherwise, it couldn't be used. On this scooter, the 2 separate brakes mean an electric motor brake and a mechanical brake, which refers to the rear fender. It is very important that we have a rear light, and we also have a front light. The rear light is, of course, not just a light, but also a brake light. However, we will naturally not find indicators on this small scooter. The release mechanism is also very crucial. This is a safety lock, essentially consisting of 2 parts, the latch itself, and there is a small tab below that prevents the lock from accidentally releasing. You need to pull up the latch, unfold the lever, and this will simultaneously release this part as well. However, it is impossible for this to open while in motion. Once you've folded down the handlebar, all you need to do is lift this small tab, and after you've lifted it and folded down the handlebar, the small tab will catch onto this hook, and you can carry it. The scooter, by the way, is built from relatively good quality materials. This rear mudguard is made of plastic, but it's thick, quite sturdy, and seems strong. So there definitely won't be any issues with this. What's interesting is that the manufacturer claims there's a hidden suspension here, so the rear wheel is a suspended wheel, which, to be honest, I didn't really notice while riding. And let's move on to the specifications a bit, specifically in the sense that I'll tell you the size of the wheels. They are 8-inch airless wheels, so there's no air in them. The suspension is essentially provided by these holes. The tire is not completely smooth. You can see that it has a slight tread, which means you can use it in wet conditions, although I really wouldn't recommend it. And then what I still want to show you are the screws that we will use to fasten it together. As I mentioned, there are that is 6 screws in total, and all you need to do is screw them in. Since this is a simple scooter, the handlebar is not too complicated either. First, I must highlight that the handlebar is not too wide, so it is absolutely intended for urban commuting, for low-speed travel. On the left side, you will find the brake lever, which is the lever for the electric brake. On the right side, there is the throttle, and here you will also find the power button, which is a multifunctional button that allows you to perform various other settings. And there's one more thing I want to show you about the operation of the multifunctional button. If you press the button once, you can switch between the speed levels 1, 2, and 3. If you press it twice, you can turn on the light. Here, I'm not sure how visible it is, but there's a small green icon. If you press it 3 times, you can activate the cruise control. The small cruise control icon appears here. Unfortunately, I don't think these are very visible in the video, but in any case, the cruise control icon appeared here. If you press it 4 times, you can switch between kilometers per hour and miles per hour. By pressing it 5 times, you can enable or disable the feature where the scooter starts immediately, when you press the throttle or if you need to push it with your foot. And if you press it 6 times, you can release the speed lock. And that's pretty much the control. And that's the scooter. A few words about the specifications. The motor is 350 watts, which they say peaks at 500 watts. As I mentioned, the braking system includes a mechanical foot brake and an electric brake. The battery is 10.4A, and that's about it. 10th ampere hour, and that's about it. Perhaps the weight is also important for the scooter since, as I mentioned, this is a portable scooter, and it weighs 16 kilograms all in all. The manufacturer claims that it can climb a 15-degree incline and states that the maximum range is around 40 kilometers. Now, the situation is that I rode this scooter a bit, and the first thing I noticed is that compared to the usual 350-watt motors, we're talking about a somewhat nimbler, more lively scooter. I weigh over 90 kilograms, so I'm not the typical test weight, as these scooters are usually tested with people weighing 65 kilograms. Despite this, the acceleration was relatively good even with me. I also tried it on inclines, at 15 degrees maybe. Let's say it goes up at 15 degrees, but if you want to use it at 15 degrees, it means that by the end you won't be going fast, but rather creeping or trudging. So 15 degrees is a bit too much for it. I would say that 10 degrees is perhaps the incline where you can still move at a relatively normal speed with my weight. The top speed is around 20-25 kilometers per hour. Obviously, this also depends on how charged the scooter is, and it also depends on the road conditions you are traveling on. Obviously, it won't go this fast uphill, but it won't go much faster downhill either, and we might say that this is not much, but actually it's not because the scooter is small, the wheels are small, the brake is weak, and the handlebar is narrow as well. So this 20-25 kilometers per hour is more than enough for this scooter. It doesn't need to be more. Well, the range is what's also important. Obviously, it doesn't achieve what the manufacturer promises with my body weight. This range is not 40 kilometers, but rather around 20-25 kilometers. But as I said, this is a scooter for running errands. You'll use it for the last 2 or 3 kilometers from the bus, metro, or tram to your destination. So even those 20 kilometers can mean several days of use before needing a recharge. What can I say in summary? Well, I can actually say that this is not a very complicated or exciting scooter, but it doesn't need to be. The scooter serves no other purpose than to allow you to cover those last few kilometers comfortably, quickly, and without fatigue within the city. You can't take it on dirt roads. You can't go off-roading with it, Malen. And I wouldn't even recommend it in very wet conditions as the wheels are small and the tires are hard, so it can easily slip on wet asphalt. You won't be speeding with it, and it won't throw you off. It's really good for exactly what it was designed for. A scooter made from good materials that looks good, works well, and absolutely fits its purpose. As usual, you will find the link in the video description on YouTube where you can purchase it and get a coupon code to make it cheaper. And there will also be a link to my written review, which you should also read. I will soon be back with another review. Come back, subscribe to the channel, and enjoy the spring. Goodbye.